this is Facelift Food Coach here, Khechara, and this is just a second video about essential fatty acids and fats in the human diet. I kind of gave just an overview about how much fat the human body needs in the last video, but this is a bit more in depth because a lot of people out there saying, oh, vegans and raw fooders don't get any of the proper omega-3 fatty acids. The diets are lacking in EPA and DHA, which are essential fatty acids for human, and you can only get these through fish and meat and that kind of thing. Well, sorry, anti-vegan ranters, you're completely wrong, because the science is there to back up vegan nutrition, as it always is, for those who care to look. So let's just have a look at these kind of claims. So the main one is that the vegan diet doesn't contain any EPA and DHA. Now, on the face of it, that's absolutely correct. If you took apart vegan foods, plant foods, and there would be no DHA and EPA in them. That's because the human body actually synthesizes DHA and EPA in its own body. Clever old body again, getting it right. Nature getting it right, and the food ranters getting it wrong as usual. There are even exceptions to that rule because there are plants that also contain EPA. One of them is purslane. It's a really easy to grow plant, mild tasting salad plant. I've grown it myself, and it's one of the few plant sources of EPA. So, yeah. Whoever thinks that vegans can't get these nutrients are wrong on many counts. So yes, there are plant sources of EPA, and for those who don't eat these bizarre plants that might not be commonly available, they're certainly not available in the supermarket, the hope is not lost because your body cleverly makes EPA and DHA in its own body, provided the conditions are there. What you actually need is to make it from omega-3 fatty acids, which is the one being ALA, which is Alpha Linolenic Acid. You need enough it's a tongue twister. You need enough Alpha Linolenic Acid in your diet to convert into EPA and DHA. It's not always about having enough ALA, it's also about not having too much omega-6 fatty acids because they interfere with the conversion to EPA and DHA. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky because almost all diets, whether you're vegetarian, meat eater, paleo, raw vegan, fruit eating even, we often have the wrong ratio. We often have far too much omega-6 to not enough omega-3. Omega-6 is in pretty much everything. Omega-3 is only in a few selected foods. For non-plant eaters, that would be fish, and for plant eaters, the main sources of omega-3 are flaxseed, hemp seed, chia seed, walnuts, and green leafy vegetables. Other seeds and nuts are mostly containing omega-6 fatty acids, not omega-3. And the actual correct ratio is, ideally, it'd be 1:1 of omega-6 to omega-3, but it's accepted that 1:4 is healthy. So omega-3 to 6, 1:4. So you can have 4 times as much omega-6 as omega-3. Most diets, whether you're vegan, veggie or meat eater, tend to contain 1:20 and even more. In fact, I've come across some raw food recipes by some very popular unnamed raw food chefs that use a lot of nuts like cashews and things like that, and some of their meals that they're creating these books have an omega-3 to 6 ratio of 1:60, which is crazy. It's extremely bad for your health. Having far too many omega-6s is a cause of cardiovascular disease. It also prevents you making the EPA and DHA if you're vegan. So for a vegan chef to be promoting foods that are that warped in their ratio of omega-3 to 6 is very, well, it's not very responsible of them really. And it's possibly where these myths came about. that vegans aren't getting enough EPA and DHA and omega-3 fatty acids. Because if you were eating like that and eating, especially raw vegans with a diet that's very high in nuts and things like sunflower seeds, you know, you're eating like loads of nut crackers with nut pate on, and then a nut-based cheesecake, your omega-6 amount is going to be through the roof, but your omega-3 is going to be very low, and that's the exact, you know, kind of ratio that is promoting heart disease. So you really don't want that. You know, the human body, as I've stated in the last video, has a very limited need for fat, you know, and it needs omega-3 and 6 fatty acids in the right ratio. That's the only fats it needs. So, you know, when you're looking at sort of improving your omega-3 and 6s and showing the anti-vegans that, hey, actually, you know, we do get enough omega-3s in our diet, you've got to approach it in a two-pronged attack. It's raising your omega-3 but lowering massively your omega-6s. And if you're a fan of raw gourmet foods, you're going to have a hard job unless you start cooking those foods out. It's almost impossible. And you know, if you watched my last video about how we only need like sort of less than 10% of our daily calories from fat, and you think, whoa, how are you going to get enough omega-3s if your fat content is so low? Well, I'll just tell you, my fat content of my diet is usually only about 5 to 7% of my daily calories, and yet I get an amazing 1-to-1 ratio of omega-3 to 6, and I actually go above the recommendations for omega-3, which is only about 1 gram, but I get 2 to 3 grams and about 3 to 4 grams of omega-6. So my ratio is down pretty much perfect, and I'm getting the amounts. I'm getting just above the recommended amounts for omega-3, and that's from all vegan food. Whereas clients who I've analysed their diet, they've eaten a really high fat diet, sort of like 30%, which is the government recommended amount, and yet some of them have got like no omega-3 at all, and tons of omega-6. So just having enough fat in your diet can still mean you're deficient in fatty acids. And I do feel that this is a real problem because a lot of people crave fatty foods, and which your body sets up cravings for a specific reason. So you could be overweight and still crave fat, because although you're eating loads of fat, you're deficient in fatty acids. If you're deficient in fatty acids, your body will make you crave fat. What you're not doing is giving it the right fat. So you need tiny amounts of the right fat, not large amounts of the wrong fat. If people took that advice, we would see the obesity level plummet, and people would become so much healthier. Especially, you know, healthier in the head. Omega-3 fatty acids are well known for being one of the nutrients that's essential for like proper brain function. Your brain material is literally built out of fatty acids. So, you know, if you don't eat healthy fats, you're not going to have a healthy brain. And your brain is the master control of your body, so it's really important. So it's an absolute myth that vegans can't get omega-3. You can, and you can make DHA and EPA in your body, so you don't need to eat it from your diet. The most important thing to do is ensure that your omega-3 intake is high enough and your omega-6 is low enough. Ideally a ratio of 1-to-1, but 1-to-4 is fine as well. If you get the ratios correct, then your conversion of omega-3 fatty acids to EPA and DHA will be a lot more efficient. If the balance is all off whack, then it's almost impossible to convert properly, and you will become deficient in EPA and DHA and need a supplement. Me personally, I find that adding just 2 teaspoons of freshly ground flaxseed to one of my smoothies gives me at least 2 grams of omega-3 every single day. My omega-6 is naturally low anyway. So basically, you don't really need to add very much to your diet to ensure that you have those omega-3s set up. Even eating a very low-fat raw vegan diet, as I do, you can still get plenty of omega-3 and in the right ratio with your omega-6. So just avoid all those raw gourmet foods that will send your omega-6 sky high. Concentrate on getting your green leafy vegetables in, green leafy plants, and your and sort of top up a little bit with some ground flaxseed or chia. You don't need to have very much. Like I said, I just put 2 teaspoons of ground flaxseed. I just grind my flaxseed once a week, because if you grind it and leave it for ages, it sort of oxidizes and all the essential fatty acids spoil and they go rancid, and then it's no good to anyone. So I grind it, well, I roughly grind about 5 days worth at a time in the sort of coffee mill attachment of my blender. I just grind them and keep them in the fridge, because that helps them remain fresh. And just put a couple of teaspoons in your smoothie every day, and that'll bump your omega-3s right up and keep your omega-6s down. Don't eat all those gourmet foods, avoid loads of nuts, don't eat animals. It goes without saying ethically, but you know, it would be hard to keep your omega-6 level down if you were eating animal products. And avoid junk foods, because they fill junk food with loads of sort of vegetable oils, the kind of cooking oils like canola oil, sunflower oil, rapeseed oil. All these kind of oils are very, very high in omega-6 and almost 0 of omega-3, so not good for your EPA DHA conversion. But you know, keep it low fat, keep it raw, keep it vegan, and you will find your omega-3 and 6 balance out. If you're really concerned about it, download Chronometer or sign up to a program such as like NutriDiary or FitDay, and actually put in what you're eating every day and see what your omega-3 to 6 ratio looks like, because that will give you immense insight into it. You can't just guess by looking at your food. It's impossible to know. I get clients come to me all the time that insist that their diet's super healthy, and when I tell them they're deficient in so many things, they're shocked. But they didn't realise, because they never had their diet analysed before. So be your own nutritional expert, analyse your diet and check your levels. And if you're vegan and people are telling you can't get EPA and DHA, or that your omega-3 fatty acids will be deficient, tell them that it's a load of nonsense. And the vegan diet is perfectly fine. In fact, it's probably easier to get them because you're not eating all the other fatty meat junk food that meat eaters tend to like so much. Okay, right, well, I hope that clears stuff up. Any questions, pop them down below and I'll try my best to answer them. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.